Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Force number 4, cover dated November 1991, and the cover is a special sideways cover, so I'm going to move it to the side like so. Make sure that that's nice and centered on camera. And the cover is by Rob Liefeld, and in my particular copy, this is my original copy of this issue. I bought it from a newsstand, so it's got this big sticker here, 65 pence. That's the old Irish currency of the punt, 65 pence, covering Cable's face there. And this is part 2 of the Sabotage crossover between Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man title and X-Force. And so, of course, the story guest features Spider-Man, and there he is. And I think Liefeld does a very good job on Spider-Man. I like the way that he's drawn him. He's pretty good on that character, and of course he's going to be good on his own creations. Domino there, and Ferrell in particular looks quite excellent on this particular cover. So let's keep going with this. Open up to the first page, the splash page here. I just want to make sure that that's nice and centered on camera. I really like this opening narrative caption from Fabian Nicieza, Manhattan, pick it up as you go along. I like that. That's pretty cool. And this is a really great shot of the trio of Warpath, Ferrell, and Shatterstar from X-Force. I like the designy element here where Shatterstar is holding his sword over here to his right. And I like the way that that kind of unites the three characters. And over here, hanging off this particular piece of rubble, we've got Spider-Man. So at the end of the previous issue, Juggernaut brought down a whole building on X-Force and Spider-Man and Warpath were able to keep everyone from getting killed and crushed by that particular building. Liefeld is inking himself throughout this issue, but the really standout feature of the issue's creative team for the issue is the colorist. So I'm going to move on to the next 2 pages, which are a double page spread. And there we've got make sure you can see all of that. You've got the title of the story, Sabotage Part 2. And we've got a massive Juggernaut there in the middle of this double page spread. Really, really cool. You can see all of that. So Juggernaut says to them, if you Phoebe survive, it'll be a bona fide miracle. He's enraged. And that is after Shatterstar cut him in the eye with his blades at the end of Spider-Man number 16. But this is kind of hilarious in a way. The eye that Shatterstar cut in Spider-Man 16 was Juggernaut's right eye. So Liefeld, of course, has the blood splatter on the wrong eye, the left eye. So, you know, some things never change, eh? But I really like that. I always like that double page spread. I think it's very nicely designed by Liefeld. And here we've got the creative team. So this in-your-face jam is brought to you by Rob Liefeld, plot art, Fabian Nicieza, balloon stuffer, I like that too. Joe Rosen and Chris Eliopoulos, print and bigger print. And then Brian Murray is the standout creator on this particular issue, famously because of the wild, wild colouring. But I always loved the colouring in this issue. It's psychedelic, it's bizarre, it's out there. And apparently the true reason for some of the bizarre colouring is that he was unfamiliar with the colour codes that were to be sent off to the hand separators, and so there was like a miscommunication of the colours he actually wanted. But I think that the mistakes, happy accidents, just look amazing. Makes the issue really stand out from every other book on the shelves that November 1991. So, and also interesting to note here that Liefeld obviously is insisted on this little created by credit here down in the bottom right hand corner. That's interesting too. And I like the angles on Shatterstar here where we're looking from behind. It's like a 3/4 profile from behind, and the same here on Ferrell too. So Liefeld doing well with the figure work, the anatomy, coming up with some interesting angles as well, switching the point of view of the reader or the camera panel to panel, keeps it moving, keeps it interesting. So here we've got a piece of dialogue between the different characters that I like. Nicieza really, really good on the banter throughout this issue. So Warpath asks, am I exhausted, or has Jughead gotten bigger since we started fighting him? So this is Liefeld's, I don't know, like artistic license. He's drawing this massive Juggernaut, and I really like it. And Shatterstar's response is hilarious. More to attack, no. And Spider-Man says, Shaddy boy, you're downright weird. And I like this from Feral too. What's your big plan, bug man? That's hilarious. He says, get a load of this, Feral, straight from the superhero strategy book. Everybody dogpile on the Juggernaut. And so they launch right at him. And that's the whole thing throughout this crossover. Like, nobody's actually got a well thought out strategy for taking down the unstoppable Juggernaut. And that's always the problem with the Juggernaut. How do you stop him? How do you take him out? Because he keeps making the point that nobody can stop him. The only person who can stop him is himself. And he says to them here, I've been swatting you gnats for half an hour already, Spidey. So what say you guys just pack it in and give me a break? I like it. The Juggernaut always weary with these fights because he knows, if no one else does, that he cannot be stopped. Now, this is an interesting 3-panel sequence here of Spidey bouncing around Juggernaut, annoying him, irritating him, irking him. And I always found it an interesting choice of Liefeld's not to draw in the webbing on the red portions of Spider-Man's costume. And I always used to wonder about that, whether it was out of laziness or whether it was an artistic choice. But I think it kind of works, and I think it's something that McFarlane sometimes did as well, and perhaps Liefeld was taking his cue from McFarlane on that. He draws them here when we're more close up with Spider-Man's face. And like I said before, I think that Liefeld does a good job on Spider-Man. I think he gets his body language right too. And he probably would have felt a little bit of a competitive urge. And I think, you know, like if the two guys, two friends at that point, McFarlane and Liefeld, you know, came to an arrangement to have a crossover, and maybe there was some kind of little competition in terms of who would draw each other's characters the best. Liefeld wins that competition because his Spider-Man, as I've been saying, is pretty damn good. And I like the way that he's varying the angles here in the panels too. I think that works well. So here he sends some webbing right over Juggernaut's eyes. That's always been a vulnerability of Juggernaut's going back to their first encounter. If he's blind, well, he can't see what to hit. And interesting too that the webbing is like the old style webbing. It's like John Romita Sr. webbing. But mostly throughout the issue, Liefeld does the spaghetti webbing as he does here on the side of this particular page, and it looks good. Now, one thing that one could say is that maybe Liefeld's Spider-Man is a little bit too built in terms of his physique. Maybe he should be a little bit more wiry as he is in McFarlane's rendering of the character, but I have no problem with this, and I like the layout of this particular page too, and Spider-Man breaking the borders of the panels as he's knocked, swatted away by Juggernaut. And on this particular page, we get this weird colouring from Murray. We've got the green, this lime green rim lighting on Juggernaut. We've got the crazy colouring in the background as well, green, yellow, orange. It's wild, but I really, really like it. And for me, it gives the vibe of sunset. You know, we've no indication of what the time is in this particular chapter of the crossover, but to me, it feels like it's the evening time at sunset, and it works nicely. Also, we get another trope of Liefeld's, which is the ground here is just this kind of mound. But what he's going for is he's going for a fisheye perspective. And I think it works. The only problem is they're supposed to be in downtown Manhattan, and it looks like they're back on top of the Twin Towers, but they're not. They're on the ground. So there should be in the background some indication of buildings. They're on street level, but it's not showing in the art. So that would be a criticism that I would make of Liefeld. I really like this sequence too, where we've got Warpath and Shatterstar getting together for a fastball special. Juggernaut here is incredulous, and he says, what are you going to do? Throw the pretty boy at me? Are you guys nuts? I just love that dialogue. And look at this. We got this great double page spread here. That I always really liked, this double page from Liefeld. It's really, really good. And again, we've got like really kind of cool coloring on the page too. It's so visually interesting and eye-catching. And his idea here to have the 1-point perspective, giving us these speed lines as Shatterstar is flying towards Juggernaut, it works really well. The figures are very well drawn too. And again, I like the angle he's chosen here, where we've got this upshot on Juggernaut as Shatterstar is somersaulting and bounding around him and slashing him with those twin swords. It's really good. Yeah, the angles that he's decided on work very well here. So let's continue with the story. And again, another very interesting angle where we're basically looking from the ground. We've got a kind of a worm's eye view, but again, that fisheye angle too. So let's combine, it's like a wormfish angle. If I combine the two perspective points. And again, some great kind of tough guy, witty banter, where Juggernaut says to Shatterstar, big mistake, pretty boy. So says the pincushion. For all your hyperbolic rhetoric, you still have yet to down a single member of my battalion, while I freely shred you to ribbons. And Juggernaut, this is a great panel of Juggernaut with his hands open and that enraged look on his face. And again, it looks like Shatterstar has been attacking his eyes through the holes on the helmet. And he says, yeah, you see, you can cut me, I heal real fast. Let's find out if we can say the same about you. And then the scene switches to the top side of the destroyed, or as the caption says, now ravaged World Trade Center. One of the towers. Hunter and Prey, X-Force leader Cable and Black Tom Cassidy play out their parts of the game. So Cable is calling out Black Tom, so we've got a down shot on Cable here. And he says, Cassidy, play it one of two ways. Give yourself up and die, or make me come after you to kill you. So I love that choice that he's given Cassidy, Black Tom Cassidy. And here in this particular page, we get more of these wild colors, these purples on Cable's armor as well. Black Tom in the background. It's an interesting choice to basically have his face in silhouette, except for the eyes and the mouth. And we can just see the beard indicated too there as well. Cable continues and says, either way, I guess you're a dead man, but I hope you didn't expect anything less after building a stunt like this. What did you expect to accomplish? And Black Tom says, all that I have and more, Cable. Don't move, boyo, and don't you dare be threatening me again. So help me, I'll fry you with my mutant energy blast, as likely as listen to your fool's bravado. Look at this, look at the wild colouring on Cable's face here. The blues, the yellows. But this is what you would be taught if, I was taught like when I was doing some fine art painting classes, that, you know, human skin is not flesh color, that there are all kinds of other colors there if you look. And so, as I said, like insofar as Murray's colors are not being communicated correctly to the color separators, it is yielding this happy accident that this is really visually interesting coloring. Let me know what you think of the coloring for X-Force number 4 in the comments to this particular video. So Cable retorts to Black Tom. He says, you're a dead man, Cassidy, come clean. What did you get out of this entire fiasco? So Black Tom explains, I like this shot too, where they're in this kind of like Mexican standoff, and Black Tom is holding his shillelagh towards Cable, and Cable his sidearm there. So he's obviously switched from that rifle to the sidearm, although I do have a theory that whatever Cable's technology is, this is my Marvel No Prize to explain Liefeld's ever-changing guns that Cable's carrying, is that this thing can transmute sizes from large to small depending on what Cable needs. That's my Marvel No Prize explanation for these changing guns that he's always carrying. So Black Tom says, first and foremost, the return of me friend Kane Marco, the Juggernaut. Secondly, that Black Tom Cassidy is a man willing to back his threats with actions. Let's continue. And he says here, thirdly, the pleasure of seeing one of your bloody righteous mutant X teams humbled and eliminated. But it's the wrong team. it's X-Force, not the X-Men. And Cable says to him here, well, you'll end the day batting .666, not bad for a minor leaguer, but not good enough to play with the big boys. Now then, make me a happy man with pleasure. And they blast away at each other. I like this. I like the layout here. It's well thought out. It is nicely done. And again, just the wild colouring here with the red rim lighting this time. All of the polychromatic colours on Cable's armour. It looks so good, to me anyway. And then it seems like the armour actually protects Cable from Black Tom's energy attack. And he shoots Black Tom in the chest. And he falls backwards through this open elevator shaft. He's hanging on, ironically, from a cable for his life. And Black Tom, again, he just hasn't put it together that he's not facing one of the bloody righteous Mutant X teams. He's facing X-Force. He says, enough, you win, you bloody scab. Just pull me up and I'll be surrendering. I like this, the tail of the speech balloon behind Cable's thigh armor. That's a nice little decision there by the letterer to keep the art open and free. And Cable says to him, he says, so you can be arrested and escape in 2 months' time to do this all over again? I don't play that game, Cassidy. And Black Tom is aghast and shocked, and he says, you don't mean, you just can't? And then blam, blam, and the look on Cable's face. I remember that. I remember reading it at the time and being shocked. I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't the kind of thing I expected from a Marvel Comics comic for someone like Cable, supposedly a hero, but actually an anti-hero in this regard, blowing away the villain. And now this is an interesting page too, where Black Tom is falling head first down the elevator shaft. Interesting use of a screen tone here as well. And Cable just watching silently, and then the camera pulls back, our point of view pulls back. He's just watching, probably waiting for Black Tom to hit the ground, but he's so far up that maybe he just decides to walk away. And this is an interesting choice. These two panels here, I don't know, we only need one of them maybe instead of the two. And then out of nowhere, it's Deadpool. And he tells Black Tom, but is Black Tom dead or unconscious? It's unclear. He says to him, shh, don't say a word. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you can't. Gross. You're coming with me. Mr. Tolliver has you on his hit list. And stop bleeding on me. That's pretty funny. A real kind of gallows humor from Deadpool. And then, meanwhile, on the ground below, Juggernaut still facing off against X-Force, and Siren has arrived. And I like this little bit of dialogue between Siren and Warpath as well. So Siren says, boy, are you in the mood to get beat again? But she's talking to Warpath, and he says, sure. Nice to see you back in the fight. Also nice to see you're a skeptic, Siren. You really think so? She says, I prefer to think of myself as an optimistic cynic. I always loved that phrase from Nicieza. That's so good. And here we have this helicopter wisping in, and it's GW Bridge. From issue 1, issue 2, here he is now again in issue number 4. And he's got some omnidirectional mic that's picking up all the dialogue from the ground. And he says, good, every slip of the lip will give us more to go on. I love that phrasing. You know, there's a kind of a rhyming going on in there as well. And he says, and the more we have to go on, the easier it'll be to bring Cable down. Great lighting from the computer screens on his face there as well. So interesting from Brian Murray, as I've said a number of times in this video. This is another great panel-to-panel sequence here. Again, we've got that kind of worm, fisheye view of things, the mound there, Juggernaut punching Warpath away, but it was all a distraction. And Siren gets his helmet off, and that's a shock to Juggernaut. And he even uses her first name. He says, hey, Teresa, get back here with that thing. How the bleep did you get it off me? It's mystically bonded to my armor. And he's in shock, and it really shows on his face as well. So Liefeld gets the expression right. And Shatterstar is here. Shatterstar is being Juggernaut's bane, really. He says, any assumption made in battle is a prelude to weakness. I love this from Juggernaut. He says, so's your mother, you pansy. And Shatterstar responds, he doesn't take the bait, and he responds and says, my blades were forged in a dimension of magic and science, Juggernaut. more than capable of slicing through your helmet moorings earlier, more than capable of slicing off your head next. That's so good. That's excellent. And then on to the next page, and we have Juggernaut. He is out of patience. That's it, enough. Legs first, no ankles, then fingers, or maybe jaws first. So you'll all shut up. And then we get this close-up on his face. He's enraged. Tell you what, how's about I'll let you decide which bones I'm going to break in which order. So Domino responds, that's pretty darn polite of the lug. And Farrell says maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. And then Shatterstar, are you all through? But I think it would have been better if the tale had come off panel and it was someone speaking off panel, and specifically the next person we see when I turn the page, Cable, because Cable arrives. So he's, as far as he knows, he's done for Black Tom, and now he's back down on the ground to take care of Juggernaut. And I like the sequence here of panels. I like the way that we get this suggestion of Cable walking, and his, so we've got one thigh to the fore here and then the other, and then as he's walking, his arms swinging and the rifle moving from one side to the other. The only problem is, I think at this point that Liefeld's under time pressure. He's under kind of like time constraint in terms of the upcoming deadline, because look, you just don't get the detail on the hands here, and indeed it doesn't make sense because this hand that's forward goes all the way back here, so he's just not thinking out the continuity of details or even filling in detail for the hand here. And I figure it's because he just doesn't have the time. He's run out of time, and he is doing what he can to ink the blow-ups of his thumbnails, because that's how we worked at this time. He worked things out in thumbnails, then magnified them using a photocopier, and then inked that. And he's just running out of time, it seems to me, to kind of like finish the details of these remaining pages. And here and there the ink line gets a bit wobbly too. I'll point that out in a moment. So anyway, back to the dialogue and the story. Cable says, how about if you begin with me, Marco? Because quite frankly, I'm so sick and tired of dealing with blatant stupidity of your kind of mutant, and sick of you too. How many times will we have to dance the same dance over and over again? No winners, no losers, just the two of us playing the part of fools. So when have Cable and Juggernaut clashed before this? It's an implication of a past history between them. Now, if you take me on first and kill me, at least you'll put me out of my misery. Of course, if I take care of you first, which could be a nice twist on things, like I already did to your good friend up in the trade tower, then we're all done nice and neat. So tell me how you plan to die, Kane, and I'll tell you how good a fortune teller you are. That's hilarious. Tough guy dialogue from Nicieza. So well done. And then another interesting shot here, and we've got Deadpool reaching up to the back of Juggernaut's calf. Juggernaut's responding here. He says, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. And that is interesting. That means that Juggernaut doesn't recognize Cable, doesn't recognize any past that they've shared, but is Cable thinking of the future? Hard to know, but a little mystery here in terms of what's being implied by Cable's dialogue. But Juggernaut says he's going to have to kill him if he's telling the truth about Black Tom Cassidy. And Deadpool here says to himself, geez, these guys talk more than I do, but I need you, Mr. Marco. Time to say goodbye. So he teleports out. And you can see on this page, in particular this particular panel, probably the rush job on the art. In particular, the lines, they're a little bit more shaky here. The hatching is a little shakier, like it was done at tremendous speed. So Juggernaut teleports away. And Cable asks, why do they all teleport away? Well, you teleport too, eh? And I like this little bit of dialogue from Spider-Man here as well, where he says to Cable, he says, you sure it's such a bad thing that Edselhead took a powder? I, for one, was hoping to invite him home for dinner. Hi, honey, I'm home, and look what I brought with me. Brr, just pictured myself in divorce court. Scary. So good from Nicieza. And then he says, hey, looks like we've got company. And it's G.W. Bridge, who's been looking to track down, and arrest Cable since issue number 1 of X-Force. And so he says, you're hereby under arrest. Now, what's the response to that going to be? Again, some wild colouring on this particular page. And Domino, well, Bridge addresses Domino and he says, Domino, talk some sense into him, please. And Domino's response is he joking or what? I can take 2 of them down right now, give the word. That's so good. Cable here, he says, no, this isn't the time or the place. Scout ship, body slide by 8. I think that's HS, gene scan only. Oh yeah, it would be HS, Homo Superior, gene scan only. And then they teleport away. Everybody's always teleporting. And this is hilarious. Like Spider-Man's just left hanging there. I don't know what his webbing is connected to, but he's hanging there in midair. And he gulps and he says, guys, where'd you go? Am I in trouble now? That's hilarious. And of course, Sam is worried about Spider-Man. And Cable says he'll be fine. He wandered in, he'll wander out. Bridge has nothing against him. And Cannonball asks Cable, and what does he have against you? What do they all have against you? And Cable, well, he doesn't tell the whole truth. He says, good question. I wish I knew the answer. I think we can't believe him on that one. And Cannonball says, I wish you'd tell me what you know. So he's not going to get an answer at the end of the issue. Cable says, everybody strap in and shut up. We walked away from it. They ran from it. Leave it at that. Now let me enjoy turning on the afterburners. Let's blow this clam bake and go home. Ciao. Next issue, The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants returns. So really pacey and enjoyable issue. And totally inked by Liefeld, but I think rushing a little bit at the end. He didn't call in Eric Larson to give him a hand like he did on issue 2 and 3. He did it all himself. And I guess he's got to be commended for that. But I would have, if I were him, I would have called in Larson to do a bit of inking for the last few pages, especially that one of Cable coming towards us, because I do think, if I can get it back, I think Larson would have fixed this with the hands and everything if he'd been inking it. And then, like, what a treat we get here. Finally get it to turn the issue the regular way. And just look at that. That is... well, it's billed as a deluxe X-Force pinup by Mike Mignola, double page spread. It is so cool. And I remember at the time, I was very much enamored with the cross-hatching style of a Jim Lee, of a Wills Portacio, of a Rob Liefeld. And there is no cross-hatching here in Mignola's double page spread, the pinup here. Just the barest bit of cross-hatching up here in the background behind the billowing smoke of whatever explosion this is. This is so cool. And my feeling is at the time I was a little bit initially slow to enjoy it. Just maybe initially, just maybe my first look, because it's a bit of a shock, the change of art style from Liefeld's, heavily cross-hatch style to turn the page and look at this. But I came around very quickly to enjoy Mignola's style. And in particular, I just love the weight, the implication of weight he gets in the characters, the stance he has on them, this powerful stance up here on Shatterstar as well. The way that he is able to simplify the details so that the details you have are just the ones you need to imply like all the gear that Cable is carrying on his belt and his shoulder braces here as well. Like everything is implied by the simplest, most economical number of lines. And of course, one of the things that Mignola is, renowned for is the spotting of blacks, just the shading, just the rendering of shadow. And so interesting here on Cannonball. I remember looking at this and thinking that Cannonball looked like a zombie or something. But it's just interesting image, powerful, really well done, so confident, so strange to see it here as a pin-up at the back of this particular issue of X-Force. And so very strange in the coming months that Mignola would fill in on an issue of X-Force as well for Liefeld, over Liefeld's layouts. Roughs. Yeah, what a great way to end this particular issue. And then you get 2 pages of letters. There's no answers of any kind because they're just overwhelmed with all the letters they're getting, mostly of praise. And then this particular little spot image at the end of the letters page intrigued me, and I was looking at it, and it's Liefeld but inked by Erik Larsen. That's so strange and interesting. Liefeld drawing of Cable but inked by Erik Larsen. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Force number 4. If you picked this up at the time back in 1991, how does it stand up for you now to this day? What's your opinions about the coloring? Let me know in the comments below to this video. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.